Welcome, Frankfort and Franklin County residents, and thank you for tuning in to the Candidate Forum for State Representative for the 57th House District General Election held on November 8, 2022. I'm J.C. Young, and I'm honored to serve on the Chamber Government Affairs Committee and your moderator for this event. The first meeting of the Kentucky General Assembly occurred in 1792, shortly after Kentucky was granted statehood. For 230 years, Frankfort has stood as the Commonwealth's capital and has been the meeting place of the legislature. The State House is made up of 100 elected representatives, while the State Senate consists of 38 elected senators. After redistricting last year by the legislature, the 57th House District is composed of the western and central parts of Franklin County. The obligations of state representative include policy research, drafting bills, reading and considering legal opinions, legislative committee work, taking concerns from constituents, evaluating state programs and assessing how legislation will affect their district and the state's budget, and most recently, funding natural disaster cleanup. In this candidate forum for state representative for the 57th District, we're honored to have Mr. Derrick Graham and Mr. Gary Stratton. The office that you are seeking has a storied history in our state's capital and is worthy of candidates such as yourselves. Before we begin, I would like to thank and recognize the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce for establishing this candidate forum, the Frankfort Plant Board for hosting and broadcasting this event. Serving as our esteemed panelists and those doing the real work today, our owner and attorney with Apollo Law and Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce Chairman, Mr. Jason Hart, Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of Master Contractors, Chamber Board Member, Chair of both the Education Committee and Frankfort First Foundation, Ms. Lynn Faulkner, and Chair of the Chamber Government Affairs Committee and Frankfort Plant Board Communications Director, Ms. Kathy Lindsay. Candidates, you will have 2 minutes for opening remarks, 2 minutes for closing remarks. You have 1 minute responses to questions with 30-second follow-ups if asked by panelists. You'll also have 2 opportunities to extend your time or rebut another candidate's response. This is titled bonus time. Please just signify by holding the card, and we will grant you that opportunity. Both of these bonus times will be 1 minute each. We had a draw prior to the candidate forum, and Mr. Graham drew number 1. So, Mr. Graham, opening statements, 2 minutes. Floor is yours.
First of all, let me thank the Plant Board and the Chamber for hosting these debates over the next several days, I believe, or today, most of it. But it's an opportunity for the community to hear and for us to address the issues that are important to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so I'm glad to be here today. And to the people of Franklin County, you know me. I was born and reared here in Franklin County, educated here in Franklin County, have lived here all of my life, with the exception when I left Kentucky to go to The Ohio State University to receive my master's degree. I decided to come home because this was the place that I wanted to get married and have children and to rear my children. And it's been a blessing for me and for my family. And I want to thank the people of Franklin County for allowing me to serve you in the Kentucky General Assembly over the last 20 years. And I hope when election time comes that you will give me another opportunity to serve you for one more term. And I thank all of you, and I thank the panel, and I thank you as well for participating and allowing us to be a part of this particular event.
Mr. Stratton, 2 minutes, opening remarks.
Again, thank you as well, the Chamber and the Plant Board. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about what I would like to do. And I want to thank Representative Graham for being here as well. And I look forward to the discussion we have coming up here in the next few minutes. Again, I'm Gary Stratton. I teach at the Kentucky State University, and I teach economics and finance. I'm chair of the School of Business there. So again, that's what I am. I'm an educator and I'm a business person. I want to be a part-time politician who wants to get some things done. That's my goal. But I'm involved in the communities wherever I've been. I'm not from here originally. I'm from Harrodsburg, just south here. But I'm a Kentuckian and I am ingrained in the capital. I think the capital is a wonderful place. It should be the shining star of our state. And there's so much that's here, but there's so much more we need to be doing. I'm involved in everything in the community I can be involved in. I'm about partnering getting people put together. People who know me here know that, what I believe in is everybody's being successful. I teach economics and finance and entrepreneurship, and I'm all about make sure everybody has success, and whatever success means to you. I'm a motivational speaker who, again, believes everybody can do what you have in your mind. You set your goals, you can go for it. And again, our students are a prime example of things they're doing. I also teach at Frankfort High one class called Financial Literacy, which is mandated. Finally, the General Assembly did that. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for you and the rest of the General Assembly, and Governor Bevins signed that into law. It should have been done decades ago to teach financial literacy. But again, my goal is to show you that, and being in the majority party, I can actually get things done. Again, it's who's in control of the General Assembly. I'd have the ear of the House leadership that can bring things back to Frankfort. And again, I've got a lot of ideas, and I'll be sharing those with you in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you both for your opening statements. Our first question comes from Mr. Hart, and it's going to be directed to you, Mr. Graham. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Frankfort's the home of the most state retirees than any other community in the state. The state retirement accounts are held at KPPA and are vital to our residents and businesses that provide goods and services to these retirees. As the legislator that will represent these folks and has, what kind of commitment can you make to advocate for these retirees?
I think that commitment has already been shown in my 20 years of service in the Kentucky General Assembly and in the House. I've been a strong advocate not only for our retirees, but for our employees. And if, as you know, we were able to give an 8% pay raise to our state employees. Unfortunately, the majority party did not see fit to provide for an increase of a cost of living for our retirees. I supported the idea of us trying to provide that because right now we have more money than we've ever had, and we could have done it. But we are looking towards possibly doing a pay increase for our retirees, a one-time pay increase for our retirees in the next General Assembly. And I support that idea.
Mr. Stratton, 1 minute.
Okay, I agree with that. And I want to see this done. It's taken 20 years to get us in this mess. It's going to take us a few years to get out of it. So as I talk with people on the trail I'm out there, I say it can't happen in 1 year, but we can, I teach economics, so we can take care of the cost of living adjustment over a period of time. So it may take us, over a few years to 2% here, 3% there. We can catch it up. It's just going to take a few years to do it. And to do that, you have to have a strong economy, of course, which takes, again, economic development, and it takes business creation. It takes the competitive nature of our society and our state to be able to do that. The past 5 years, we've done a great job of moving in that direction. We have a lot more to do. But I'm all in favor of catching up the COLA, as we call it, for the state retirees. That's very important. It's been 11 years since they've had a COLA increase, and that should not have happened.
Our next question comes from Ms. Faulkner. It's going to be addressed to you, Mr. Stratton.
If elected to the office next term, what is the first bill you intend to file?
Well,
You
it's
have
going.
1 minute.
Okay. The first one would be probably an exploratory on the veterinary school of medicine. I'd like to see a Kentucky veterinary school of medicine. That's one thing I've thought about for years. So that's something that's going to take a partnership with KSU and UK and some private entities that we've talked to about putting that together and having it close by. So the Kentucky School of Veterinary Medicine. After that would be more of a conference center and school of business at Kentucky State. I would like to see that's something that the Frankfort community definitely needs as a conference center for meetings, and we definitely need a school of business. And after that, I'm giving you 3, by the way, but the third one would be, of course, financial literacy and economic education. They finally passed that 4 years ago, but I want to see that tightened up so that we have more of a handle on what's going on throughout the school systems, make sure that's being taught in the correct way.
Mr. Graham, 1 minute.
I think the first question that you asked me, it's all about, I think, us looking at our retirees and giving them a cost of living increase. And we are working on both sides of the aisle to possibly provide a one-time cost of living increase. But the first bill I filed this past session was to give a cost of living increase to our retirees and also a 5% to our employees. And we were able to give them eventually an 8% pay raise And that will be the first bill that I will drop if reelected to serve another 2 years in the Kentucky House of Representatives. Thank you.
Our next question, excuse me, comes from Kathy Lindsay. It's going to be directed to you, Mr. Graham.
Okay. There is a constitutional amendment on the ballot this year that would allow the state legislature to change the end date of the legislative session through a 3/5 vote in each chamber. It would also provide that a special legislative session for up to 12 days may be called by the House Speaker and the Senate President, as well as changing provisions regarding when a law takes effect. What does this mean for the people of Kentucky? Why was that important? Why is it important to have it on the ballot? And is this something you support? Why or why not?
I've said this before. I'm opposed to both amendments, but let me address that amendment. The whole purpose of a citizen legislature was established in the Constitution of Kentucky, that people would come from all walks of life in terms of farmers, teachers, business people, and that you would get a diversity of these people from all different sections of the economy as well as the regions of Kentucky. If we go to that, people who are working class people, middle class people will not be able to serve, because if you stay here from 1 year, from January 1st to the 31st, that takes people away from their jobs. It's already difficult for those who are serving now on a 30-day and on a 60-day in the even years. And to do that, once again, it's an encroachment, I think, of the legislature of the three branches of government.
Mr. Stratton, 1 minute.
Okay, and I agree with that. I am actually opposed to that as well. I think we meet enough, so I would vote no on that amendment, by the way. Going back to the previous question, I would be a part of any bill that would, of course, increase the COLAs. I've already mentioned that. I teach economics, so we got to get that going and get that started and make that right over the next several years. And again, I can actually get that on the floor. My opponent is, again, in the party that is not in power. He's on the committee on committees. He could not get that probably out of the committee. I can. So, again, being in the part of the majority party, it has its benefits for Frankfort, Franklin County, KSU, or anything that is of importance to you. I will have more power to get those things off the committees and into the floor. So that's, again, I would definitely be for that as well, and help get COLAs started as well as any pay raises for our state employees.
Our next question comes from Mr. Hart. It's going to be directed to you, Mr. Stratton. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Do you support adding employment protections for gender identity to state law? Yeah, Frankfort just had Capital Pride, and we have a fairness ordinance. I'm actually the fairness officer for the city, so that's just a question I thought we
Sure, yeah, of course, I don't want to see anybody discriminated against. So anything, I would need to look at the law, of course, and make sure if there's something there we need to address for us, make sure no one's discriminated against. I would be definitely for fairness. I've seen some of those laws, and I'm for some parts of it, and I would definitely look at that and be a proponent of that.
Mr. Graham, 1 minute.
I am for equal opportunity. I've always been, regardless of who you are, who you love. I think the Constitution of the United States makes it very clear is that everyone has the right to have the ability to make the decisions and make the choices that they need to make in order to be happy, but also in order to be respectful of one another's decisions. And so it wouldn't be a problem for me to support that.
Thank you both. Our next question comes from Ms. Faulkner, and that's going to be addressed to you, Mr. Graham. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
As a candidate for the General Assembly, what is a specific piece of legislation or topic before the body that you believe the legislators should have passed in the last several years, and why?
Would you give me that question again? I kind of didn't hear it.
What legislation or topic before the body that you believe the legislature should have passed in the past several years, and why?
Well, number one, I think we should have passed a cost of living increase for our retirees. Number two, I think we need to focus on public education. And I think we're making a bad decision by allowing private and parochial schools to be funded with state dollars. You know, the purpose of public education was to make the citizenry a very understanding about how democracy works. And if we continue to take money away from public education, we cannot expect to be able to draw additional businesses if our education system is not truly funded. Our public education system is not truly funded.
Mr. Stratton?
Okay, yeah, I would again go back to the COLA as well, the cost of living adjustment. I've seen that out there on the campaign trail a lot in the past few months. And again, teach economics. I know that's something we can't solve overnight, but I think over the next 6 to 8 years, we could whittle away at a good bit of that, just a little bit at a time. So again, it's unconscionable to not have a raise in your retirement over an 11-year period. So I think that's something we need to tackle first and foremost.
Our next question comes from Kathy Lindsay, and that's going to be directed to you, Mr. Stratton. You'll have 1 minute.
Okay. How do you think that anti-abortion laws affect companies looking to locate in our state? And will you be voting for or against the Yes for Life amendment that will be on the ballot?
Okay, well, I'll be voting for the amendment. So, but I'm also for exceptions. You know, we'll be talking about that in the legislature. Once if that bill passes, then we'll be talking about certain exemptions and so forth in the legislature. It'll be up to that body to take care of that. Of course, comes to companies locating. I want to see more companies grow here too. For us getting companies to locate here, we've got just one component. One is, of course, competitive tax structure, less regulatory conditions, of course, and a good labor force that's educated both at college and vocational schools. So there's a lot of other things going on there besides just that one vote. It may hurt us in some instances, but I don't think that will have a major impact on a company coming here for that one issue, because we will have exemptions and so forth. And first, we see what happens with that vote.
Mr. Graham, 1 minute.
You know, it's interesting. My opponent says that he wants exceptions to rape, incest, and the health of the mother, yet he's going to support an amendment that's going to prevent that from being able to take place. Either you are or you aren't. Either you for a woman's right to determine her own health care, or you not for a woman's right to have her ability to make decisions for herself and her family to be working with her to make those decisions. I think that we have to be as compassionate, but also to do the right thing, because the Constitution doesn't divide us between men and women. It provides all of us equal rights under the protection. So I think that this is a bad move. It's a bad move for Kentucky, and it's a bad move for those who want to move into Kentucky and bring new jobs. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Chairman Hart. It's going to be directed to you, Mr. Graham. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Kentucky's not unique to having a workforce problem. It's a problem in a lot of states. But we keep hearing from businesses regarding worker shortages and small businesses keeping up with the pay increases and inflation. What can you do as a member of the legislature to grow and strengthen our workforce in this community and in the state?
Well, I think what we're doing, I think the governor has done an exceptional job bringing new industry here in Kentucky. The question is making sure that they're well prepared to take these jobs, to make sure that the education system is in place, working with businesses to see what kind of incentives we can provide, but also making sure, I mean, we've gone through a pandemic, and part of the problem that we're seeing is that people have had really some difficult times moving away from where we were from 2020 to 2022 because of the pandemic. And so we need to address the issue of mental illness, or helping people who have gone through a difficult time during this time period that we've gone through the pandemic.
Mr. Stratton, 1 minute.
Look at our labor force participation rate, which is one of the worst in the nation. Around 56% of our labor force is working actually right now, and so we got to increase that. Whether it's through drug issues, trying to work with that issue. Whether it's education issues, also individuals that are on some type of assistance. Let's have a scalable payment plan so that if you start making a small amount of money in a job, you won't lose all your benefits. You'll still keep some of your benefits, and make it an incentive to work, not incentive not to work. So I'd like to see us try to get some exemptions, hopefully from the federal government, since we have such a very low participation rate in that labor force, that we can get some type of exemptions to allow us to experiment with giving incentives for folks to work and still get their benefits, maybe 90% of the benefits, or have some scalable amount there that they would receive and still work or be able to have a job.
Next question comes from Ms. Faulkner. It's going to be directed to you, Mr. Stratton.
The population shifts in Kentucky sorry about that. Population shifts in Kentucky are imminent. I can't say it, sorry. With the rural workforce lagging in the projected rate. Some counties located in the Golden Triangle have had huge gains in population with new housing and industry. The key to the growth of is transportation and infrastructure. What do you support at a state level to increase our state's resources towards transportation?
Well, of course, the Mountain Parkway, I've traveled that many times. I've doing a lot of things in eastern Kentucky myself and projects, so that has helped that region. But that's only part of it. We have a really good road system and network around the state. So I think we need to work on more maker spaces, business incubators. There's other ways to, most places in eastern Kentucky and other parts of rural Kentucky cannot support a 600 plant factory. It just, there's not enough people there to do it. So they can, through App Harvest, like we noticed that companies, start up, and other companies in eastern Kentucky can, those companies maybe have 20, 30, 40 people. We need to work on more business startups. That would be through business incubators and so forth in the regions, some venture funds maybe in those areas that can help small businesses be created. And I think that's where we're missing the boat. And we've done some of that, but we have to do more of that.
Mr. Graham, 1 minute.
I think what we can do, and I think we have done that, and we will continue to do it, is to try to provide tax incentives to bring companies in to establish new jobs in those areas. I think right now, with what we've gone through in the last year with tornadoes in the west and the flooding in the east, is that we've got to rebuild our infrastructure. And now is the time to invest, particularly in those two areas, which are rural areas, but also have difficult, in certain parts of those areas, difficult time in terms of economic development and attracting new businesses into their communities.
Our next question comes from Kathy Lindsay. It's going to be directed to you, Mr. Graham.
The General Assembly over the last few years has passed several changes to the tax code. There is an interim legislative task force considering legislation regarding the barrel tax on bourbon. Do you support the repeal of the barrel tax? And if so, what would you suggest to replace the revenue to Franklin County?
Well, that's a tough question, because the bourbon industry is a signature industry here in Franklin County, but across the Commonwealth of Kentucky as well, and in the world. Now more than ever, it's people are drinking bourbon and enjoying bourbon. I enjoy bourbon, but I think what we have to do is, and I support the idea, we as a community here in Franklin County, but as a Commonwealth, we must protect our signature industry, but we also need to make sure that we protect the amount of money that our local districts, I think there's 7 districts here in Franklin County that receives part of that money. Most of it goes to the school district. And so we've got to look at ways in which we can find new revenue to possibly plug that up. But I do support the idea of us doing whatever we can to promote one of our signature industries of bourbon.
Mr. Stratton, 1 minute.
Okay, I would be against that. I think we got to protect the revenues of Franklin County, and that's a big part of it. We can still support the industry with other tax issues, such as the lowering of the income tax, which we're doing. That's keep us competitive with states around us. We can lower which we've done also, the corporate tax, which keeps us competitive with the states around us. I think that's what companies are looking for. The barrel tax, I think that would be detrimental to some of the budgets here in Franklin County, obviously, in Frankfort. So I think we need to think twice before we do away or repeal that, and look at the other taxes that companies really are looking for when they're looking to locate here or start up and grow here. So again, I would look at those taxes to be more as something I want to continue tackling versus the barrel tax.
Yes, sir.
I do think that what we really need to do is local and state government need to work with the schools and those agencies that receive the tax, but also work with the bourbon community to see what we can come up with to compromise. But it should not be a standoff. We should be able to have some give and take in developing a tax system that will benefit all sides.
I
Thank
think
you.
we have time for one more question. Mr. Hart, Chairman of the Chamber Board of Directors, you're going to ask this, if you don't mind, address this question, Mr. Stratton. You'll have 1 minute.
I'll keep it short. I'll ask my shortest one. If elected, would you vote to end Kentucky's right-to-work status or not?
I am, well, we already have right to work, so I would continue that.
Mr.
You want me
Graham?
to answer?
Yeah, 1 minute.
I voted no when we made the change. I think it's a wrong thing for us to do. It takes away from the right of people who work, particularly in industries that are impacted, who salaries are not as high as they were in professional areas. But I did not vote for us going to become a right-to-work state.
We've now come to the end of our questions. We're going to ask for candidates to have their closing remarks. We started with you, Mr. Graham. We're going to start with you, Mr. Stratton. You have 2 minutes, closing remarks to the Franklin County electorate.
Again, for this opportunity to be here, as I really appreciate the chance to talk about some of the things I would like to do. There's much more. You can go to my website, and I'm, been putting some stories out in the paper about some of the things I would like to see done. There's so much opportunity here. And the same with Frankfort, Franklin County, KSU, and the Commonwealth. We have so much that we've left on the table undone. And I can be a voice at the table. I know we both will have a seat there, but I would have a powerful seat. Even a freshman person, Republican, I'm in the majority, I would have power to get things on the floor. My opponent, again, is in the leadership, and I realize that, and has a seat at the table, but even being on the committee on committees, there's just no way to get things out on the floor. So what I appeal to the voters here in this region, if you, Franklin County and Frankfort and KSU, I've got so many things we can do, and I would want to work with the city government, the county government, KSU to help get things on the floor for this region. And I appeal to your sense of your local governments. Is what can we do? Who can be a better advocate for you in the House of Representatives? And again, I'll work tirelessly for you. I'll be traveling on my own money to bring things here, and I do that already here locally on a lot of projects I'm involved in, just to try to help create a more innovative entrepreneurial economy here in Frankfort and Franklin County. That's my goal, to make sure everybody has success in some way, whatever success may be to them. But I can bring things on the floor of the House that my opponent, I don't think, can, because of just the party the parties that we're in. And I want to get that opportunity to show you in the next few years what I could do and what I could do for Frankfort and Franklin County. And I would appreciate your vote come November the 8th.
Mr. Graham, closing remarks, 2 minutes.
I want to just say this before I have my closing remarks. He talks about me being in the minority, but being in the minority, I was able to work with the majority, Representative Tipton, to help pass 250, which helped the stabilization of Kentucky State University. So just because I'm in the minority doesn't mean that I have not been providing for the citizens of Frankfort and Franklin County. And I want to say to the people of Frankfort and Franklin County, thank you again for allowing me to represent you in the Kentucky House of Representatives. All of my life I've been engaged, whether running for public office or supporting community service, such as serving on the state YMCA board, the South Frankfort Community Board, the South Frankfort Neighborhood Association, the Grad Club, which was a club that was for those who graduated from the Mayo Underwood School here in Frankfort. I served for 9 years on the city commission, and I served as mayor pro tem of those 9 years. And since I have been in the General Assembly, for 10 of those years I have been in some form of leadership, whether it be in the Budget Review Subcommittee on K through 12 in developing the budget for K through 12, or whether I was the chairman for 3.5 years of the House Education Committee, and now I have served for 4 years as a House Democratic Caucus. Yes, I am in the room. Yes, I am discussing taxes. And yes, I have been able to deliver to the city of Frankfort and the county of Frankfort. And just to give you an idea, $12 million I have brought to this county and this city for water and sewers, $500,000 for Peaks Mill in terms of water and sewer, The Grand Theater, $488,000 we brought into the Grand Theater when they first started. Broadband development, $8 million here in Franklin County. The Capital City Airport, $3.3 million. The total of sewers here that we have been able to provide for is $8 million, of which I have brought home to the people of Frankfort and Franklin County. So I ask for your support, and I thank you for allowing me to serve you for another term. Thank you.
As we close, I would like to personally thank both of you for seeking this office. You've put your name on the ballot, spent your own time and money, skipped out on family events, only to serve your community, and I want you to know that it's appreciated. You've both done a great job, and I wish you the best in this election.
Thank you. Thank you all.
There have been some election law changes statewide in the last several years, and there's now multiple ways for you to cast your ballot in this election, a few of which include mail-in absentee ballots, in-person early voting before Election Day, and in-person Election Day voting on November 8th, 2022. If you don't know where or how to vote, please call the Franklin County Clerk's Office, 502-875-8702, or check out their website. It's loaded full of current election information. Voting is a right in this country provided by our Constitution, and these election law changes will hopefully increase turnout and participation. It's been an honor to serve as your MC and moderator for this event. I'd like to thank all the folks that aren't on camera today who made this event possible. I'd like to thank the Frankfort Plant Board staff, the Chamber staff. That concludes this forum. Thank you for joining us.